Hi, this is Andy. Today I'm going to show you how to move a Joomla website to Plesk. I've used this same method from moving from Cpanel to Plesk, and now I'm going to use it to move between two versions of Plesk. So to do this, I'm going to use a tool called Xcloner, and this is available for Joomla as well as for WordPress, and it's free and it works very well. So I've downloaded it and I've installed it on the back end of my Joomla server. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the components and I'm going to find Xcloner where I've installed it here already on the server. And then there's this item here which says generate backups, and you just leave everything with the default settings and then click on continue, and it'll back up the tables, it'll back up everything, and it'll help you move that over to the new server. In the meantime, we can jump over to the new server over here. And so for those of you who aren't so familiar with Plesk, generally you have three main interfaces that you work with. The first one here is for the infrastructure, and then from here you can navigate to the control panels, and then there's the click on the manage and it says log into Plesk, which then takes you to where you manage your customers and subscriptions. And then finally you move over to the particular subscription for the customer and fill it in from there. So you can see here, if I click on the customers, it has the customers here and then customer information, and then related to those is also a subscription, and you can see those as well. So this subscription is the actual website. So if we have a look at this one here, there's the information related to this. It's all set up, but if you haven't set up your subscription, then you would just say add a new subscription, and then you would put the website, and this has to be exactly the same as the domain. So for me it's infusion.fi. I'm using a shared IP address configuration. We'll talk about this in a little while. You would just add a username and password and then press OK to create that subscription. Now when the subscription has been created, you can click on the manage hosting over here and it takes you off to that third interface, which is where we actually manage that domain itself. So the next step now is that we need to go to the tools and settings. Because our DNS isn't configured properly, we need to go and set infusion.fi as the main domain or the default domain. So we click on the tools and settings and then go to IP addresses. You can see that this is where all the IP addresses allocated to us are, and we can see there's the IP address that we're using, and I changed this infusion.fi to the default one. So what that means in practice is that anytime I put this domain into the URL, that it will go directly to our website, which is what we need to do in order to be able to find the files that will be copied across and install them correctly. So that's done now. That's set as the default. The other thing that we need to do is we need to go to the subscription that we've set up for this infusion.fi, and then we need to click on the manage host. We need to go and set up a blank database. So you can come here, click on websites and domains, and then go to the databases and then add new database. I make it quite easy for myself by saying that it's used for Joomla, and then that's the customer there, and then it uses MySQL, and we can use the defaults here, and then press OK. It creates the database. And then the next thing that we need to do now that we have the database is we have to create a database user. So I always use Infusion, and Infusion is actually taken when we created the subscription. So, and I don't seem to be able to use that other one correctly, or it never lets me use Infusion because that's already taken. So we'll just use this Infusion too. Put the password in here and confirm the password and press OK. Okay, so we have our database user set up, and we also now have the database set up. And we need to remember this and also this and the password, because when we copy the stuff over and we have to put the stuff into the database tables, it'll want to load it into this blank database. Some people have tried, including myself, to install applications from here. But the biggest problem that you have is that when it's installed like this and you try to then import the stuff into the database, so you could do the installation here, but then when you try to copy stuff over from that other one into this one, there's going to be a whole lot of table clashes. So it's better off just to have that blank database with no tables in it at all to do the copy. All right, we're pretty much ready. So we can go back and we can find that our backup is completed, 96 megabytes. And now we can start to move this backup, which has been done on the old server. We can move it to the new server through the FTP, and then we can start the import process. So we click on clone, and for some reason it's jumping us back here, which is okay. Let's just go and we'll find it in the view backups. That's the one we want, and we'll try it again. And it takes us to this page, which is correct. Now we need to have the address for the new server. If you've got your DNS all sorted out, then you can use that. But for me, I'm just using the IP address. And you remember that I put the default website on Plesk to the one that I'm trying to install. So it should direct me to the right place. FTP username is the username that you created on the subscription when you created it. It can also be seen from subscriptions. Open the subscription, and there's the username here. So you need to make sure that the username is exactly the same here, otherwise it puts the files into the wrong places. So Infusion is here, and then put in the FTP password, and you can test these credentials with your FTP client. I've got it set up here, and I can see that they're working, and it takes me to the correct folder. And then always with Plesk, it goes in here to this HTTP docs here. So copy that one, then drop it in, but make sure it's in the same format that's shown below here. So like that, and that should be where the files go. So Infusion is making sure it goes to infusion.fi, and then this is making sure it goes into the correct folder. And if everything goes correctly, they should show up right here in this folder. So don't select the incremental transfer, and then click on continue and hope for the best. And if it's gone successfully, 3 files are copied over. You'll see the Xcloner PHP, the tar PHP, and then this other one here, which is where all the files are actually carried across. So this is the configuration file, which we're going to get redirected to in just a moment. And if we go to the FTP and have a quick look, refresh, then you can see those files there. It's really good to do it this way using the FTP account. I've had all sorts of issues with file permissions and everything like that, but I find if you use this Xcloner and put the details in the way that I showed you just a second ago, then it should work pretty fine and you don't have any permission issues. So we click here, and it looks like everything's gone well. And the reason why it's taking us here to find this PHP file is because, once again, remember that we've set the default domain as this one, so it knows where to take us. Localhost is what needs to be put in here. The MySQL username, as we said before, was what I specified. Infusion 2, we couldn't use that one. And then we put the MySQL password in here as well. And then the database name was called Joomla _ Infusion, and use the default encoding. Now those details are in, you can start the install. And now it says please click to continue to install the database. And then it says here you should be done. Okay, so it redirects us to the site, but as you can see here, it's showing up the welcome to Parallels, which is the default site. So let's go and have a look at the files and how they've been installed here on the FTP. And as you can see, they've all been copied across nicely. This one was my backup file. I don't really need that anymore, so I can delete it. And also we're done with the setup script. And we're also done with this tar file as well. So those three can be deleted. But still we're getting that default page as I was showing a second ago, and that is because this one, index.html, this is that Plesk page, and so it's always going to this one by default. If you just take this and you rename it old, and then you do a refresh, bingo, it should work. So now it's looking for the default file, which is, if no index.html is found, then it looks for index.php, and then it finds this one here. You can even delete that file if you want, but I just usually rename it. The next thing that you should do is you should check that the configuration file is correct. So in order for Joomla to work correctly, it needs to have the log file and also the temp file configured correctly. So I'm looking now at my PHP configuration file. I'm down the bottom of the file, and you can see here that this is the problem here, that the old website used to be called Infusion Consulting, and now it's called infusion.fi. We'll change that one as well, .fi, and now the log files and the temp files should be in the correct place. We can save that and close, and then put that one back up on the server. So now we can log in. And everything should be okay. So it looks like we've now successfully installed it over here. I'm going to do a backup of the templates here, and then I'll do the upgrade to Joomla 3.36, which I couldn't do before because the PHP version on the server wasn't supported, and the provider didn't enable me to upgrade the server or the version of Plesk. And that's how you migrate a Joomla website to Plesk. Good luck with the process. It generally works pretty smoothly if you follow those steps. Cheers.